a lot of confusion and misinformation around the Nintendo Switch 2, and with it launching on June 5th, 2025, this is going to be your complete guide to understanding how the Switch 2 launch will play out, from launch games, paid upgrades, free upgrades, to Nintendo Switch Online Plus benefits, and much more. I also timestamped this video for your convenience. Now, I'm not just someone who is speculating on how the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be. I actually had my hands-on time with the Switch 2 during a preview event that I was invited to by Nintendo and got to try out a couple of games as well as test out the hardware, so I'll be including some of that in my video. Also, sound off in the comments because I want to know all your opinions about the Switch 2. The Switch launch is on June 5th, 2025, and the pre-order date is officially going to be April 24th, 2025. Now, there are two versions of the Nintendo Switch 2 happening at the launch. The first one is just the Switch 2 alone, which is going to cost $449 MSRP. Inside the Switch 2 is going to be the Switch 2 console, the Joy-Con 2 controllers, the left and the right one, the Joy-Con 2 grips, the Joy-Con 2 straps, a Nintendo Switch 2 dock, an ultra high-speed HDMI cable, a Nintendo Switch 2 AC adapter, and a USB-C charging cable. There is also going to be another Nintendo Switch, but this one's not going to run forever, and this one's going to include the launch title Mario Kart World with it, and the price for this is going to be at $499 MSRP. However, this is the cheapest way of being able to afford the brand new Mario Kart World, making this game only $50 if you decide to get the Switch 2 bundle. Mario Kart Worlds is actually going to cost you $79.99 USD if you're not bundling it with the Switch. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't cheap at all, and it does feel that gaming is now becoming a luxury, and with how the economy is right now, these high prices suck. I also wanted to throw out my advice there that you don't have to FOMO, the fear of missing out, at the launch itself. Sometimes if you can't afford these, waiting it out is a good thing because you can grab these consoles and games at a cheaper price, maybe during Black Friday or during any crazy sales. I just wanted to put that out there. Now, this is actually one of the most expensive Mario Kart games ever on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I think Nintendo priced this much higher because it's not just a single player game that you experience where you just beat it and don't pick it up again, but it's a game where you'll log a ton of hours and most likely pull it out over and over again during events or when you feel like racing. I also have a funny feeling this might be the exact same pricing for games like Smash as well, whenever they release it. Now, it's the most ambitious Mario Kart game, and I played it. It's a lot of fun. The Grand Prix has you go through multiple maps while also racing on the way to those other maps, while the Knockout Tour mode is all about being able to survive and makes you go through a ton of maps. It's probably the most sweaty version they have, and I barely got to experience it during my Nintendo Switch 2 preview event because I lost immediately. Now, they've also added a ton of different characters in the game, and besides characters, they completely ramped up the amount of costumes in the game that you can get from grabbing a to-go meal item that shows up in front of a restaurant chain called Yoshi's. For example, Peach eats sushi and you get this outfit. And it looks like Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi can also eat sushi and get these outfits. Another example is Wario eating this food and becoming a pirate Wario. They also want players to really learn and optimize on the map because they added a feature called Rewind that can be used in single player and free roam, where you legit rewind your racer to try and reach different locations. They also added a charge jump mechanic where you just hold the grip button while driving straight, and then you will be able to charge up and launch into a massive jump. You could also hop over obstacles, dodge shells, ride rails, wall ride, and jump towards walls and cling to them for shortcuts and insane plays. I think Nintendo is really trying to also make Mario Kart World a big social experience because they really are emphasizing the whole meet up with friends, teleport to them anywhere on the map, and enjoy free roam. They also have integrated features with the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. Personally, I'm not a fan of sharing screens due to the quality being low, but I am a fan of the face highlight circles over the characters and can see a lot of funny moments happen with that. Now, the free roam experience open world format allows you to go anywhere you want in the game to discover a bunch of things, do mini games, and it has a ton of collectibles with it. They even got a whole photo mode in the game where you can have it edited to be like postcards. As opposed to their launch title being a single player experience like Zelda Breath of the Wild, they're going this time for a really big open world, competitive social experience, and that's why we're getting Mario Kart Worlds as a launch title. But I'm only going into details here because this is the launch one. Now, speaking about Zelda games, the Nintendo Switch 2 versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will also be a day one on the Nintendo Switch 2. Before we get into the details of this, I do want to really point out these games look really good on the Nintendo Switch. They're extremely smooth, the frames are much higher, it looks glorious on the Nintendo Switch 2 screen, and it was really meant for this console. I mean, it just looked as good on handheld as it did on dock mode, and I was mind blown during the Switch 2 preview event. That being said, let's talk about the important details of both of these games because it can get a little confusing on the Switch 2. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition will cost $69.99, while the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition will cost $79.99. If you own the Nintendo Switch 1 version of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, the upgrade cost will be $9.99. However, if you are a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion member, which costs $49.99 per year, which a lot of Nintendo Switch owners also have, then Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 upgrade is going to be completely free. My strategy to try to save as much money as possible would be to try to find a copy of either of those Zelda games on sale and just do the upgrade cost of $10 to not blow a lot of money. I also wanted to mention, included in the Switch 2 version is something a lot of Zelda fans have been begging for a long time: a second save file. That way you can experience the game again in glorious quality while retaining your old save. I'm honestly jealous of anyone playing this game for the first time, since you'll be able to really enjoy it now. There's also a big feature that is happening to go along with these Zelda games, which is known as Zelda Notes, which is found on the Nintendo Switch app on your phone. It has navigation that legit sounds like active voice guidance, legit GPS. Listen to this.
Guidance activating. Proceed north.
That's not all. When you visit certain places, you'll hear voice memories which were not in the original game, so I guess it's added content. They even have auto build sharing, so anything you build in the game has a QR code to share, and you can even scan in ones from other people to bring those builds in the game. On top of that, they even have item sharing, which allows you to give in-game items to other players, which include food and weapons. You can also edit photos in the photo studio on the app, and it gets even more insane. You can see your own player data with your accomplishments and global play data to see what everyone else has accomplished. Pretty cool. They even have a daily bonus effect that lasts the entire day. So I'm really curious if anyone watching will use the Zelda Notes feature and will be playing for the first time. I'm very curious who's a first-time Zelda player. Okay, if the Switch 2 is really about to change the game, let me throw this at you. What if you actually learned how this stuff works? No, not building a console from scratch, but learning back-end development, the kind of thing that powers real games and apps. And BOOT.dev, today's sponsor, makes that actually doable. I've been using it myself, and it's not your average tutorial learning grind. It's really a unique and fun way of learning back-end development with Python, Go, and SQL, but it's gamified. You earn XP, you level up, you complete quests. It literally feels like a coding RPG. They also have an AI wizard bear, yeah, seriously, named Boots, who actually helps you learn by asking questions like a real mentor. And trust me, writing real code is the only way to actually get good at it. And you're actually learning a real life skill that you can use whether you want to work in games, tech, or just build something cool for yourself. Boot.dev is the move. You can try it free at boot.dev, and if you really like it, use my code BillyBeatsYou for 25% off your first year. Links in the description. Click it, start coding, and maybe someday you'll build the next amazing game system or create the next biggest game. Now, there are some other Nintendo games that are also getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition version that did not get mentioned to have the free upgrade with the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack membership. So these are most likely going to be mandatory paid $10 upgrades if you don't purchase the Nintendo Switch 2 version. This includes Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. I got to try this out in my preview video, and it's definitely fun. However, if you purchase the full version, the price of this is $79.99. So it really benefits you if you had the game previously and you are upgrading with the $10 upgrade. And this game is going to release for the Switch 2 on July 24th. And this same price point also applies to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is just visually enhanced with improved frame rate, and it contains a new story called Star-Crossed World. In this case, if you own Kirby on the Switch 1, the $10 upgrade would definitely make a lot more sense, since this feels more like legitimate DLC and not just paying to make it look good. The release of this is going to be on August 28, 2025. Now, if you're a Pokemon Pokemon fan, this is probably the biggest news. Pokemon Legends ZA for the Nintendo Switch 2 runs way smoother than the Switch 1 version. It's literally night and day if you take a look at this footage. However, according to the Nintendo website, the only thing that gets upgraded is going to be the improved performance with higher frame rate and resolution, and that's all. The price point has not been revealed yet for this, but most likely it'll range from $69.99 to $79.99 and would most likely be a $10 upgrade from the Switch 1 version and will be releasing sometime in 2025. The final first-party Nintendo Switch 2 edition game is going to be Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and based on the pattern of Nintendo first-party IPs, this will most likely be $79.99. And if you own the Switch 1 version, it'll be cheaper for the Switch 1, and then you probably have to do the $10 upgrade. This is actually the first Metroid game I've ever played, and the graphics actually blew me away during the preview, and playing with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons was really interesting for aiming. So the Switch 2 version will support mouse controls, have enhanced resolution, better textures, better load times, and can run at 120 frames per second in 1080p on TV in performance mode, and its quality mode can run 60 frames per second in 4K resolution in TV mode. On Nintendo's website, they show the graphic of how exactly it works when it comes to these games with a math formula. Nintendo Switch game plus Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade pack equals Nintendo Switch 2 edition game. Hopefully this clears it up and it's not as confusing for you. Now, believe it or not, your old Switch games are going to get a free update on the Nintendo Switch 2. And there are 12 of the games that are about to get a lot better, especially number 12 on this list. First, ARMS, which was one of the first games to come out on the original Nintendo Switch, which was kind of underrated, is going to see a rework, which is awesome. There's also going to be a ton of Mario games like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World, and the new Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. So big win for Mario fans. Then there's some obscure games like Game Builder Garage, Big Brain Academy, and Clubhouse games. If you're a Zelda fan, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening are also getting a rework, which will be interesting to see because they weren't too bad looking on the Switch 1. But the one everyone has been wanting the most is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which definitely needs this upgrade. According to Nintendo's website, all you have to do for these free updates is connect your Nintendo Switch 2 to the internet and it will download via the update. So shout out to Nintendo for the free game updates that you don't have to pay for. Of course, besides owning the Switch 1 versions. Now let's talk about the yearly Nintendo Switch Online individual membership type, because it is a little confusing when we mention this, because there are actually two. You have the regular Nintendo Switch Online yearly membership, which costs you $19.99. This is going to allow you to play online, access Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy, Nintendo Music, save cloud data, access to the Nintendo Switch Online app, and the brand new game chat, which is the C button on the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con. The second type of yearly membership is called the Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, which gives you access to everything previously stated from the Nintendo Switch Online perks, as well as access to the Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and expansions to certain Nintendo titles that they choose, as well as access to the GameCube games like Soul Calibur 2, F-Zero, Zelda Wind Waker, and a bunch of other titles, including Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness and Pokemon Coliseum. These games will feature higher quality than their previous releases, widescreen support, and other amazing features. I also played Soul Calibur 2 with Link in it and F-Zero with the widescreen support during the Switch 2 preview, and I was really impressed. As I mentioned before, the only free Nintendo Switch 2 upgrades that you will get to the Switch 1 games are Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom with this Nintendo membership. Now, a big concern that a lot of people have online is that pushing the C button is going to cost money. While this is correct, and you do have to be a Nintendo Switch Online member to do this, a lot of people didn't know that Nintendo actually has stated on their official website that until March 31st, 2026, Game Chat can be used without a Nintendo Switch Online membership. Afterwards, a Nintendo Switch Online membership will be then required to use the Game Chat. Now, while I do see the argument that voice chat should be free, and I actually agree with that, at least it's worth noting that you'll get about 9 months free of this feature, which maybe you might get tired of it in 9 months, or you might really enjoy it. And while in the videos featuring it, it looks like it's only 4 people in the voice call at a time, you can actually have a total of 12 people in a voice chat. The 4 people thing is only for people who are sharing their game screen or using the video chat at the same time. Now, let's talk about the official accessories that Nintendo is going to release for the Nintendo Switch 2 and the prices behind it. And I just want to point out, as of this video, that Nintendo put out a statement on April 18th, 2025, talking about Nintendo maintaining Switch 2 pricing while retail pre-orders are beginning on April 24th in the US. However, Nintendo Switch 2 accessories will experience price adjustments from those announced on April 2nd due to changes in market conditions. Other adjustments to the price of any Nintendo product are also possible in the future depending on market conditions. We apologize for the retail pre-order delay and hope this reduces some of our uncertainty that our customers may be experiencing. And then following that, we now have the manufacturer's suggested retail price as of April 18th, 2025. Now, the Nintendo Switch 2 itself is maintaining its price. The Nintendo Switch 2 plus the Mario Kart World bundle is also maintaining its price. Mario Kart World itself is maintaining its price at $79.99. Donkey Kong is also maintaining its announced price at $69.99. But this is where things start to change. Originally, the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller was going for $79.99, but the new price is now at $84.99. For a pair of Joy-Cons, the old price was $89.99, but the new price is now $94.99. If you wanted a Joy-Con 2 charging grip, the old price was $34.99, and now that has jumped up by $5 at $39.99. If you want a Joy-Con 2 strap, instead of paying $12.99, $1 increase at $13.99. If you want to buy the Joy-Con 2 wheels that let you feel like you're really driving in Mario Kart World, well, instead of paying $19.99, you're now going to be paying $24.99. The Nintendo Switch 2's camera at 1080p was $49.99, but is now going to be $54.99. However, I do want to mention an honorable mention that the Hori camera is also coming out. It's a Piranha plant designed Nintendo Switch 2 camera. It is lower quality at 480p. However, it does come with the cool little privacy mouth closing on it. So if you are interested in that, that might be something to take a look at. And it's also cheaper than the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. The Nintendo Switch 2 dock's old price is $109.99 and is now jumping to a whopping $119.99. The Nintendo Switch 2 carrying case and screen protector's old price was $34.99 and is now moving to $39.99. If you want to get the Nintendo Switch 2 all-in-one carrying case, the old price was $79.99 but is now jumped to $84.99. If you want to have a Nintendo Switch 2 AC adapter, the old price was $29.99 and is now jumped up to $34.99. The Nintendo Switch uses a Samsung Micro SD Express card, so if you want to pick that up from the official licensed one from Nintendo, the 256 GB one, that is going to be costing you $59.99. Thankfully, Nintendo has just raised the accessories and not actually touched the console, so they're trying to make up their money in other spots as opposed to slapping it on the consoles for now. Of course, you can hit that subscribe button at any time if you want to know the updates. Now, another big question that a lot of Nintendo fans have is what Nintendo Switch 1 accessories are going to be compatible with the Nintendo Switch 2, and luckily Nintendo has actually placed this on their website. Now, if you own Switch 1 Joy-Cons, they can actually pair wirelessly to the Nintendo Switch 2 with no problems. If you own a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller, this can also pair wirelessly to the Nintendo Switch 2. If you own the Nintendo Entertainment System controller, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System controller, or the Nintendo 64 controller, or the Sega Genesis control pad, these are actually going to all be compatible and be able to connect wirelessly to the Nintendo Switch 2, and they'll all be able to work for their compatible games. One of the big things that you can't use are micro SD cards, as the Nintendo Switch 2 is designed exclusively for micro SD express cards. So that is the major difference to keep in mind when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. Also, the Nintendo GameCube controller adapter is also compatible, so that's pretty big, and this can be used in TV mode by connecting it via a USB port on the Nintendo Switch 2 dock. And of course, that's going to be important because there's also going to be a Nintendo GameCube controller that is also coming out. As we talked about, we're going to be able to access the Nintendo GameCube for the Nintendo Classics. Alright, so let's talk about the games specifically at launch. For first-party titles, we're getting Mario Kart World, which we've talked about already, at $79.99. We're also going to have the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which I really wish was a packed-in game. However, it's going to be $10. So if you want to play that game and learn more about the Nintendo Switch, you can play it. If not, don't worry, I'll purchase it on the channel and bring you a full hands-on so you can see what that exactly is. We're also going to be getting some third-party titles like Arcade Archives 2 Ridge Racer, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, which is an insane RPG at $39.99. It's one of my favorite 3DS games I've played, so I highly recommend this as a pickup if you really enjoy JRPGs. Very good game. I wish they made more just like this one. We're also getting Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, which is going to be $69.99. I did get my hands on it. It's very powerful. The loading times when you initially load in the game takes a bit, but when you start the game, you're able to just run around and explore and do a ton of things, and they're optimizing it until the very launch day of the Nintendo Switch, so that way the battery doesn't drain out fast when you're playing it, because it's a very powerful game. We're also getting Delta Rune, which is going to cost you $24.99. It's going to include Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. So Delta Rune fans, you can rejoice. We're also getting ourselves Fast Fusion. A big one is going to be Fortnite. Even though it's a launch title, it is a free game as long as you played Fortnite. I think the only benefits that are happening here is that it's going to look a lot better on the Nintendo Switch 2, and you'll be able to use the mouse function when playing Fortnite. So things are about to get sweaty in Nintendo Switch 2 lobbies. A game by Capcom is also coming out called Kinitsugami Path of the Goddess. This one looks really cool. It's an interesting kind of tower defense style game with its own aesthetic graphics. It looks really nice, and that's from Capcom. We're also getting Hitman World of Assassinations coming as a launch game for that. Hogwarts Legacy is an interesting title on the Nintendo Switch 2. They did have this playable at the Switch 2 preview event, and the difference between the Switch 1 version and the Switch 2 is honestly night and day. It looks so much better now, so if you're into that, you can play that game at launch if you haven't touched it yet. They're also going to have Nobubanga's Ambition Awakening Complete Edition as a game. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S is going to be there. We also have Street Fighter 6, which if you love fighting games, this is an actual must get. It's going to retail at $59.99. It is definitely something you need to pick up, especially if you like fighting games. They have their own Switch 2 mode where you just move the Joy-Cons, tilt them in a certain way. My friend Rogers Base and I were able to test this out during the Nintendo Switch 2 preview event, and it was a ton of fun, and it looks so good. You don't even know the difference between Nintendo Switch 2 and the PS5 version. Seriously, it's that good looking on the Switch and flows perfectly. And along with that game, we're getting Street Fighter 6 amiibos dropping on the same day as the Nintendo Switch, which will retail each at $29.99. This includes Luke, Jamie, and Kimberly amiibos, and third-party amiibos are usually priced higher than Nintendo's amiibos, so just keep that in mind with that game. Other games that are coming out are going to be Survival Kids, Split Fiction, which is a very fun co-op game. I don't see myself playing that more than once. I actually did play it already, only one time, but it's a great co-op game, very fun. We also have Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. I got to play it. It was a ton of fun as a Nintendo Switch 2 single-player experience. Now, we're also getting Nintendo Switch 2 upgrades, which we did talk about, but I'm going to mention some other ones like Civilization 7 to make the game look a lot better, and you'll be able to use your mouse for it to be much smoother. You also are getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrade for Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. That's also happening, and that will be a paid upgrade if you already previously have this on the Nintendo Switch, as well as what we mentioned before, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch 2 editions. Also, along with the Zelda games, they are launching 4 Zelda Tears of the Kingdom amiibo that are coming out on Switch 2 launch days. I love these characters. They're amazing. Now, don't forget, we're also going to have the GameCube on launch, and some of those games are going to include F-Zero GX, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and Soul Calibur 2, so you don't want to miss out on that. Now, besides the launch title games, there are upcoming games that you want to also look forward to. The first one being a month after the Switch 2 literally releases is Donkey Kong Bonanza. This game is so fun, it's so addicting, and you just can't put it down. It's such a great game, and the fact that you can smash everything on the entire map, it's a giant sandbox game with Donkey Kong in it. The graphics look phenomenal. There's so many secrets to uncover, so many things to do, and this is definitely a great game to have just a month after the Switch 2 launch. We're also going to have Metroid Prime 4 coming out sometime in 2025, the Switch 2 edition, so I'm looking forward to playing Metroid there. We have Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm playing this on the Switch 2 exclusively because I cannot stand graphics on the Switch 1 anymore. I'm so done with Switch 1. We also have Kirby Air Riders that is shown to come out too. Big game, big time for Kirby fans to be excited. And some big third-party titles. I mean, if you've never played a From Software game, you get the chance of experiencing Elden Ring, the Tarnished Edition on the Nintendo Switch 2, as well as in 2026, the Dusk Bloods, which is From Software game again on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's an exclusive, so that's going to be huge. You also get to play games like Borderlands 4 that's coming out, and I think a huge one from Square Enix is the Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. I mean, there are just so many games that maybe have not even been announced yet, but these are all the big ones that I'm looking forward to. If you have any comments about the Switch 2, put them down below and let me know what you think, and check out this video right over here.